everyone. Welcome to Life Mastery TV, your source for inspiration, empowerment, and fulfillment. My name is David McLeod, and I am your Life Mastery coach and author of the lovely little book, A Life to Die For. I'm also one of the co-authors of the Wellness Universe best-selling series, The Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care. And by the way, so is my guest today, also a co-author of that group. Today, we're going to be going into episode number 208, and our topic is resilience through jazz living. Now, I'm sure everybody can see that the world is in a state of flux these days. And with so many things happening, it's easy to become overwhelmed by all the changes. People everywhere struggle to maintain a sense of balance. And it's easy, like I said, we experience stress in a whole variety of different ways. So it's easy to become overwhelmed by all the changes. It's no wonder there's so many reports of high-level stress and stress-related consequences. And I don't know if you know this, but stress on its own is really a relatively neutral force. We experience stress whenever we set out to do something, whether it's something we enjoy or maybe something we don't enjoy so much. However, when there are many different situations happening in our lives simultaneously, the level of our stress can accumulate to the point where it starts to do us actual harm. Even the so-called good motivational stress can become unmanageable, and the levels of cortisol in our bodies can rise to almost toxic levels. Anything that can reduce our levels of stress, and therefore our physical levels of cortisol, will have a beneficial effect on us. The problem is, there are still the situations and conditions in our lives that we have to deal with, right? So, what to do? And that's the big question. Well, for this episode of Life Mastery TV, I've invited a resilience guide to help us understand this topic. My guest applies improvisational skills from jazz music to help people become more agile. Pretty exciting stuff, huh? And to access their inner resilience during life's challenges. Her workshop participants up-level their stress response, improve their relationships, and expand their impact. She's the author of a book called Seeking Serenity, How to Find Your Inner Calm and Joy. So please welcome the delightful and beautiful Leah Skurdal to our show today. Come on, Leah. Hi. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name correctly. It just occurred to me that good. I may have put the accent on the wrong syllable.
Skurdal.
Skurdal?
Skurdal. Accent on the first syllable.
Okay, well Skurdal. Got it. I won't make that same mistake again.
Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, well, you're most welcome. It's my pleasure. I've gotten to know you fairly well over the last few months because we've been on a variety of different programs together, and I've really been taken by some of your story anyway, and I know that you've got a pretty deep and intense story that you share about how this idea of resilience became so important to you. Would you mind, let's start off. Why don't you just share a little bit about your own story so we can understand, where you're coming from.
Great, thank you so much. I have been working with this principle of resilience for decades, actually. When I was 20, I was studying in France, woke up one day in a French hospital to find out that my best friend and I did not die in a car crash.
Ooh.
Yeah. And I thought I was 20, I was fine. I'm fine. And then I went on to my vacation, was annoyed, trying to get somebody to take stitches out of my head. When I got back to my French apartment, then I found a letter from my mother telling me that one of my friends from high school had died in a small plane crash. And that turned my world upside down. All of a sudden, I was asking, why am I here? And that question has still been with me. I've lived a purposeful life now for 40 years, being very intentional. And I've been very aware of how so many of us have troubles dealing with those rapid changes and answering those questions of, why am I still here? And that hit me hard recently when one of my my daughter's friends, who was her peer mentor in high school, he fell into hopelessness and despair, and he took his own life. And that just my mama heart just broke.
Right.
And so the question is, okay, what if he'd been able to hear his wisdom? What if he'd been able to tap into his inner resilience? Would he still be here playing guitar with his friends? Yeah. So that's one of the questions that I play with is, how do we tap into that reservoir of inner resilience? Because
Right.
I wasn't taught that in school. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I know that, and often I think that the answer that most of us get when we ask questions like that, the answer basically is, well, just let go and let God. And that sounds good, and I suppose anybody who's in a deeply spiritual place will truly understand what that means. But if you haven't achieved that level of awareness yet, what does it mean to let go and let God? What does that really mean? How can I possibly know if that's really going to solve my problem? I still have to live. As I said in my write-up, the circumstances of my life haven't changed just because I let go and let God. So I understand that well-meaning people can say stuff like that, and yet we still have to live our lives. So, yeah. So let's talk then about this.
Sure.
First of all, I want to come back to another thing you said. You were asking the question, well, why am I here? Why am I here? And, I phrase that slightly differently. I say, why am I here? But it comes down to the same question, doesn't it? And I think many of us ask that question. I've had a couple of situations like you where I was lucky to walk away from them. And so sometimes I ask myself, okay, whoever you are, you kept me alive for this. Why? What am I supposed to be doing? So let's dive into this and see where it takes us, because I think it's going to be really, really interesting.
Yeah, that is a fascinating question for us to be reflecting on. How do we find that purpose? Well, there might not be just one purpose. There's purposeful living. And I think with your life mastery, you probably see that same pattern of, how do we bring our best selves into each moment? And
Right.
and sometimes that requires some flexibility, some pivoting, because sometimes we get triggered by and our not best self shows up. So I guess I think that we don't have just that one some light in the sky, this is my purpose, but that bringing our best self moment to moment into the day is part of our purposeful living. And so when we let go and let God, part of that is also being present in this moment with, first off, what is, being present with what is, finding you have a choice, and then listening and creating a sacred space where you can hear your wisdom.
Right. Right. Recognizing that you have choice. I think that's a powerful thing, and it's interesting that you bring that up, because that's the topic of my next session in my Grateful at Last course. It's all about choice. And I think, well, what I have learned in my own life is the one constant, I think, that truly is available in our lives is choice. In every single moment, we have the ability to choose something, whatever it is. And so many of us make our choices kind of unconsciously. We don't really think about what it is that we're doing. We don't really contemplate what the consequences will be of the choice that we're making. We just kind of go autopilot, follow the yellow brick road or whatever brick road we happen to be on, and do things because that's the way we've always done them, or because somebody recommended it, or some other thing like that. And we don't really think deep down inside, well, what does that mean for me? So I think this is an important part of the whole resilience process. I mean, tell me what you mean when you talk about resilience, I want to make sure that I am using the same definition.
Sure. Yeah, resilience is the from my perspective this normal way of tapping into the stuff that helps you get through the days. And it isn't just something out there, and it isn't just toughing it out. It's that we have this, when we're tapped in, plugged in, we've got what it takes. So you've got a lamp and you turn it on, but if it's not plugged in, you're not going to get any light. So that effort of plugging it in and being open. You know, another analogy is you can have your fist closed or you can have your hand open. And so having that openness in your heart so that those insights can percolate through, or you just feel into what is the next right thing. And that choice is so important. I'm so glad you're doing that in your class. This class has been really helpful, by the way. I've been attending, and it is that's a marvelous class. And so choice is the perfect next right step. And when we choose resilience, you know, we can choose to stay in victim, pity, despair, sadness. I mean, we can choose that downward spiral, but also we can choose to look for the good, look for something to be joyful. And I love this amazing book by Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi death camp. And
just go ahead and say, what's the title of that book?
It's called Man's Search for Meaning. And it is, his point is that everything can be taken away from you except your choice to choose your attitude.
Right.
You get to choose that moment to moment. Mm-hmm. So we can, when we're talking about resilience, just, you know, having that foundational belief that I do have what it takes within, starting from there. I don't know what it is. I don't know where to find it. I don't know, you know, what's going to be next, but I trust that there is something there and I will find it. That just, to me, seems like the foundational piece.
Right. I think for me, when I think of resilience, I think of, I mean, this fits right in with your description. I think that for me, resilience has to do with my ability to absorb, if you like, the energies that are around me and to still bounce back.
Yes.
That's kind of how I see it. It's that's my kind of little metaphor. I feel like I'm a sponge that, you know, all the energy comes in, but then I choose which energy I want to have and that I want to keep, and I filter out all the rest that doesn't serve me. And then again, by virtue of this power of choice that we've been talking about, I make the choice to be more expansive, to open, to grow, to bounce back, and to just fully live my life to the best of my ability.
Sure, I agree. And then that first step is finding your breath. So when you don't know what's next, you don't know what the next step might be, choosing again to trust your breath. It's available to all of us. And okay, so now I'm just going to bring in that breath of life and be open to that insight that's available.
Right. Yeah, beautiful. I just wanted to acknowledge the folks that are here on the live presentation. Thank you for being here and welcome. Also, I'd like to just invite you, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll do our best to respond to those as the time makes it available. Thank you for the smiley face, Anna. Appreciate it. Always like to get a smiley face from you. So Leah, so we have this thing where we've got a kind of a way of being in the world right now. Some people call it the status quo. And the situation in our world is for many people deteriorating, and many kind of unpleasant or bad things are happening. How do we deal with the changing global conditions, and not to get too I like to use the word infected by the stress and the negative energy that's coming out?
It is a lot. It is a lot. There are a lot of things coming at us all the time. And we can't control those things. All we can control is our attitude. And so giving yourself some space to get back into your place of personal power is really important. And, maybe we don't have a lot of time in the day to create space. But for example, I get up early, so about before everybody else, so that I've got that time to regroup, or maybe you take a long bathroom break and you just chill for a couple minutes. And again, notice your breath, get present in your body, find where you're feeling the stress and tension, and can you allow that to move on through? Instead of having that constriction in the muscles, can you let it move on through? I'm noticing there's some tension in my neck. Okay. Can I focus on allowing that energy to just keep moving rather than getting stuck? So that's one way. Just being that presence is the thing that helps me get through this, another thing in the world. I don't actually listen to the news, because it takes me down too much. If there are important things, I'll find them out, but I don't need to know all that stuff day to day. Doesn't help me. Depressing.
Yeah, depressing. That's to put it mildly. Yeah, I think no, that's good advice. And as you say, focusing on the breath. Well, I think most of us have not learned how to breathe properly anyway. We have so much dysfunction in our whole breathing apparatus because of lack of education and maybe lack of understanding. I just recently purchased a book. It's called Breath, and it's written by James Nestor, and it's awesome. I already knew most of this stuff, but there was still some really good information in there that I hadn't heard before. And he talks about nasal breathing versus mouth breathing. That's the biggest point that he wants to make. We are so bad at we spend a lot of time mouth breathing, and he says it has a really negative effect on our physical well-being. If we can learn to breathe nasally on like almost 100% of the time, we can change so much and improve our health so much just by that one simple action. So I'm glad you mentioned breath. I'd highly recommend people pick up that book and read it, because there's just so much there.
Well, that's interesting you bring that up, because somebody else recommended that to me recently. So I guess I better read that one. But
oh wait, you have to wait for the third person to tell you. No, you don't really. Go ahead and do it.
Breath is important, because I just was in this class on bone health with Linda Lippin, also in the Wellness Universe, and she just talked about breath and how we never learn to breathe properly.
Exactly.
And she's saying to focus on your expanding your diaphragm down. Exactly. And breathe into the diaphragm, pushing that down. And then as you exhale, bring the diaphragm back up and let all that air push it back out again. Like, oh, that actually is interesting. I've never learned that particular method of breathing.
Right.
So yeah. I'm going to practice that one as well.
There's a lot of good stuff that we can learn by studying the breath. I want to mention the second major point that Nestor talks about is the value of carbon dioxide. And, we're often told that we have to, get rid of the carbon dioxide and just keep oxygenation and stuff. Well, the problem is when we don't breathe properly, we end up with not nearly enough carbon dioxide in our system, and we're over oxygenated, and that can result in, what do they call it? Oxidization. And that has a negative effect on us. But it's not that you want to like overload yourself with carbon dioxide. It's just that you want to learn to breathe in such a way that you're not forcing out all the carbon dioxide too quickly. So that's why he recommends long exhale and just let the inhale take care of itself. What happens when you do that is by having a long exhale, you delay how rapidly that carbon dioxide leaves your body. And when you inhale, the oxygen comes in and it is more easily absorbed then. And so you actually improve your oxygenation levels by slowing down your breathing. It's really counterintuitive.
Well, isn't that interesting? Because that's actually part of the process of activating the parasympathetic nervous system to calm yourself.
Isn't
because
that
as you breathe in, and that you're expanding the rib cage to the sides, your vagus nerve, which travels from the base of the skull down the back in around the sides, gets a hug and says, "Oh, it's safe to be here. It's safe to breathe now." And it's
a breath hug. I like that.
Yeah, it's a calming response then as you slow down your exhale. So that's brilliant that there's all this science behind why slowing down your breathing is good for you. It's getting more oxygen into your brain where you need it.
Yep. So it's interesting that we kind of had a little detour away from resilience because of breath. And yet I'm glad we touched on this because this is really important stuff. And I hope people really get the benefit of this if they watch.
But that's how we tap into our resilience.
Yeah.
See, that's one of your tools to tap into your resilience is using the breath.
Yeah.
And you're being present.
Yeah, and presence to me is about just simply being aware in the moment. And that kind of relates to it. I don't have to be doing meditation in order to be present.
No.
I don't. In fact, I could make my entire life a meditation if I choose.
Exactly.
If you think of the definition of meditation as just simply being in the present moment, then anything can serve for meditation.
And that's actually one of the steps that I refer to as jazz living is finding your inner rhythm. And so when you're present,
slow down. I love this term, jazz living. It really gets me excited. I think it's a brilliant thing that you've latched onto and that you've created a whole program out of it. So I want to highlight that because I think it's really awesome. All right?
Sure.
Because I know you kind of downplay a little bit because you're doing it,
Okay.
But this is great. So take that and
okay, we'll start there then. So, we didn't learn the skill in school, but we can notice that our brains are hardwired to prefer certainty and predictability. And yet life isn't like that. Life is unpredictable. Life is more like jazz improv. And we can borrow those principles from jazz music to apply to our daily lives to become more agile rather than fragile, more resilient, more able to find our inner creativity. And jazz musicians stand on those principles of tapping into their inner creativity, hearing their rhythm, and then responding to the other players with curiosity and innovation. And we can do the same in our own lives. And that's what I call the art of jazz living, is being in that flow. So when you're in jazz living, what that looks like is when your sympathetic nervous system gets triggered and you're in fight flight, and that emotional wound from childhood is like setting you on edge. You can pause and breathe and notice and allow that emotional wound to just pass on by Allow that trigger. Notice what's going on in your body. Notice the tightness in your throat. All of a sudden you can't talk. Like, okay, I see that. I feel that. Okay. I'm going to breathe. And now I'm going to respond from my adult self.
Right. Beautiful. So I'm just curious. I'm a little bit of a point here. Have you ever been involved in jazz yourself?
Oh, I love jazz.
Huh?
And what I love about it is that improvisation. I love listening to jazz. I'm not a musician myself, but
Mhm.
the appeal of jazz is that it crosses religious, political, and multicultural boundaries.
Right.
All across the world, people tune into jazz and find ways to make music their own.
You know, it's funny. I like jazz up to a point. It's interesting when we're talking about music. I am a musician, and I am also the kind of person who likes structure. Oddly enough, I mean, I like having the flexibility of creation and improvisation and stuff, but I like that improvisation to fit within certain boundaries. With jazz, it seems like, in my opinion, what I've observed with jazz, there appear to be no boundaries. It's like, let's just take this direction and see what happens. And on some level, I love that. But on some level, I notice that I would prefer to say, all right, I think it's time to take a left and get back to where we were going before. Sometimes I feel that in my body.
And there are some principles that jazz musicians stand on. You know, you play in the same key, you listen to the other players. When it goes too far, you come on back.
Yeah,
So, and those pieces are perhaps open to some interpretation as well.
right.
But that's what life is like too. We
That's
go in
very
one
true.
direction
Yeah.
and then we come back to our non-negotiables and we self-correct. And
Right.
maybe we go down a rabbit hole and then we notice that we're off track and we come back to center. So that when we're clear about what those non-negotiables are, what that center is, that's the foundation. And then from there you improvise.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I think that, well, I think almost everybody can relate to the experience of life seems to be going just fine. You're moving, in a particular direction. Everything is okay. Everything is, hunky dory. Everything is copacetic. And then all of a sudden, you get slammed by a car accident, and maybe somebody you love gets killed, and it just upsets the whole apple cart, and you wonder, what the hell is going on? Why is this happening to me? And yeah, then we get all these stories that we make up about, oh, God's punishing me because I didn't do this, or the universe is trying to tell me that I'm not on the right path, or whatever, blah blah blah. That's all it is. But the beauty of it is, we all have the opportunity after such a situation to recover, to bounce back, to then make a new decision about how we're going to live our lives. And
Exactly.
yeah, I certainly know that's happened in my life.
Yeah.
But I bet that everybody who listens to this, everybody in the world goes through some form of experience like that at some point during their life.
Those are those choice points
Yeah,
of, okay, now what? And at those choice points, then we're the meaning makers.
that's right.
And and we have choice about the meaning that we're going to give to a particular situation.
That's right.
What, am I going to make it that I'm bad, that I did a bad thing, and I require, X amount of forgiveness? Okay, we can make amends. And if we erred, and then we can again now choose, all right, let it go. And those moments of, okay, if I go in the direction of, oh, I'm not good enough, I'll never be good enough, I can't possibly atone for those problems that I created. Well, that's a choice set. But we can also go into the choice set of, okay, I had a problem, I've fixed the problem, I'm now done with that problem, and I'm moving on to again a higher level of living. And again, we can find that by tuning inward, beyond the yappy voice on the outside, to that quiet voice of wisdom within that tells us, oh, really, honey, you're okay. You are good enough. You know, we know that as we get to this deep level, you're so loved. You're so loved. There's only love there at the core, at the center. And that's what I want people to plug into, to know that in their bones.
Yep. I like that, and I agree with you 100%. I know I've had the same experience myself. When you get right down to the nitty gritty, you know, after you stop listening to that chatterbox in your head, and start listening and lowering your I don't want to say lowering your vibration, but raising your vibration and lowering your attention to the deeper part of yourself. Mm-hmm. Then you connect back to that source of infinite love, infinite unconditional love that really knows how to keep you going.
Yes.
And yes, that is really where life begins, I think. You know, we all can have situations occurring around us, but we can navigate our way through them simply by staying true to ourselves and connected to the essence of who we really are, which exists. I mean, I don't know that it really exists inside me, but that's how it feels. Like I have to bring my attention down and inward in order to access it. You know what I'm saying?
I agree. And that's where we've spent so much of our lives focused outward. Yeah. We look for the solutions outside of ourselves. You know, I'm a recovering sugar addict. You know, I didn't become an alcoholic, but I was on that path, you know, like looking for the solutions outside of ourselves and to mask. And yet, when we take time to tune inward and listen with the ears of our heart,
right,
we can find that wisdom, those gems, and then we'll know what the next right thing is, because we can feel it with our hearts, with our gut. Your gut wisdom and your heart wisdom are equally as important as your brain wisdom.
Right, and I would say in many ways even more important. You know, the brain is a valuable tool for all of the amazing things that it does, keeping your body alive, keeping your nervous system working and all that stuff. It's very, very, very amazing in that regard. But we also have an ego mind that seems to reside in and around the neighborhood of the brain. And that ego mind can trip us up. It's the ego mind really that has all this fear-based thoughts going on and tries to keep us safe from all these dangers that it imagines, most of which are completely imaginary. And if we can just kind of get away from that ego mind, I mean, we can use it, we can befriend it, we can help it to serve us in some way. But if we can bring ourselves out of letting it drive our lives, then we start to focus more on that inner wisdom, as you were talking about, trusting our gut, trusting our heart, trusting that the wisdom here is far more valuable to us than anything that might come from the little chatty chat up here.
Exactly. And that ego mind is helpful. It makes us able to balance a checkbook and follow your GPS. And but then how do then the deeper wisdom is your inner GPS. And
that's right.
and tapping inward to be beneath the chatty mind. And just as you say, we get in trouble when the ego mind is driving all the time. Like, okay, wait a minute, you can go sit in the back seat now and allow soul. Now, granted, my soul has certain maybe values that my ego aspires to. And, like, okay, wait a minute, you're all happy about being loving and kindness in the world, but what about paying the bills today? So we need to have a balance
That's
of,
right.
of both
Yeah.
of both and yet let our the wisdom, the wise part, our soul wisdom, be the driver.
Yeah, of course, of course. Well, balance is a very, very important aspect of resilience, isn't it?
Exactly.
If
Exactly.
you're going to bounce back from something, it really helps if you've got some balance.
Yes. Yes, it's you're able to know at an intellectual level, okay, this is how I researched to find out how to heal my gut because I ate too much sugar for too many years. And that level of, it's my wisdom that said, oh, you need to heal your gut because you've been you've been eating too much sugar for too long. And it's my intellectual wisdom that does the research and talks to the right people, because actually my wise self put me in touch with the right people. So that's
Bingo.
where that balance comes in of
Right.
both
Right.
and then the
Right.
ego being willing to say, okay, I do not need to eat that 100-gram bar of chocolate today. And so that, again, those choice points. Okay, I've got a higher purpose here. I would like to bring my highest and best self into the world. And when my gut is in pain, I can't do that. So I'm going to choose to have a healthier, higher vibration in my physical body.
Yeah, beautiful. All right, so now I'd like to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about these principles that you were talking about, the principles of jazz music, and how we can take those and apply them specifically to different areas of our lives. Why don't you walk us through a little bit of that? I think you mentioned earlier that the first step in resilience is connecting back to the breath and coming present and raising your awareness. So now let's talk a little bit about these jazz music principles and how we can use them once we've established a more calm approach.
So that's what we've been talking about, actually. I just haven't labeled it yet. And the first is find your rhythm. Choose your body wisdom. Listen to how does your body want to move? Where is there tension? How can you allow that tension to just let go, move on through. And that's what I notice a lot, is that my knee is talking to me right now. Okay, but I'm just going to let it move on through. I'm not going to engage my fear in, oh my God, my knee is going to have a problem. No. We don't need to go there. You just, okay, I hear you, knee. Now we're going to let that energy move on through. All right, so that's the first step. Find your rhythm. And then second, you're connecting inward. You're plugging in, reconnect to that inner well-being, to that the divine love within. Reconnect. And that can be just toggling from your, like you toggle between two computer screens, you toggle between that outer ego shell and the inner soul. Oh, okay, I'm listening. And then the third step is to find your groove. You listen. Listen for what is yours to do. And you might not hear anything in the moment, but just creating that space of, okay, I'm looking for my groove. I'm ready for the groove to emerge, to take over. And then you share your voice. Fourth, share your voice. And what is that action you need to take, or what is that thing you need to say? And then the fifth is to step back, collaborate with other people, so that a greater good can happen. Then you start over again. Okay, so now somebody has put something into the circle, and now I'm going to again check in with my body, listen to my heart wisdom, see what wants to emerge, share my voice, let somebody else respond. With this flow of giving and receiving.
Right. It's beautiful. And it sounds an awful lot to me like dancing.
Yeah, I love that.
It's a flow for sure. But I don't mean that you just have one person leading and the other person following.
No,
I mean, in a kind of a communicative, or not, that's not right, the word, a community style of dance where everybody's involved, and sometimes one person is leading and sometimes another person is leading, and we're all kind of contributing our own energy to the group dance just by tapping in, as you say, staying present to what's real, finding our rhythm, listening to the inner wisdom, finding that groove, and then collaborating, stepping back and collaborating. And so it may take a conscious effort to say, oh, I think I might be taking up a little too much space here. It's time for me to back off and give someone else a chance to step in.
Exactly. And then something greater than the individual parts emerges when there's that shared expression. Then new insights that have not been available before can emerge, can show up. That to me is exciting. And that's what gives me hope for the future. We started on that conversation a while ago, like, how do you deal with all of the craziness out there? Because I'm seeing on the other side of all the crazy.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I'm
the other
heading in that
side of
direction.
crazy. I like that.
I'm heading in that direction. Like, I don't know how we're going to get there, but I know that's where we're going, because that's the trajectory that I'm holding.
Yeah.
And 500 years ago, Copernicus didn't want to tell everybody actually that the Earth revolves around the sun, because that was heretical, and he could have been burned at the stake for that. Slowly he was able to share that wisdom. Well, if we leap out 500 years from now, just think, everyone will know that we can tap into that reservoir of inner resilience to get through this crazy stuff that's happening right now.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
And create a world that works for all. That's my vision. And okay, are we going to get there in my lifetime? Doesn't matter. I set my sight on, am I on track with that vision in this moment, day to day? That's the big picture.
Well, I like your questions. And is it going to happen in my lifetime? And I think the answer is yes. But when I say lifetime, I'm not referring to your necessarily the time that you spend in this physical form on this planet.
Right.
I believe, because of just my own personal experience, and not so much because of religious teaching or anything, but I believe that all of us are infinite beings having a temporarily finite experience.
Right.
That's what I believe.
Yeah,
and so there's life before life, and there's life after death. It's just nothing in between. I mean, it's all life.
Right.
So yes, it's going to happen in your lifetime, and you will probably have some experience of witnessing it, although not necessarily in this
right. Whether
form.
It's on this side or on the other side, I'm on track.
That's right. Yeah, and I believe that's true for all of us. I really do. Even the crazy, that's all part of it. We can't live our lives without having some crazy in it. That's why we do it. We create this in order to rise above it, in order to bring ourselves the awareness and the experience of who we really are. We invite it into our lives for that reason. And most people just don't really see it that way. They see themselves, they're still stuck in this whole place. Well, all of this is happening to me.
Right.
Very few people think it's happening for me.
So I believe that part of the evolution of consciousness now is this shifting outside of the victim-perpetrator matrix, that duality of either or thinking. And when we can get beyond that to both and thinking, to know that, well, we might disagree and actually we're both right. How can that be? They're two seemingly different things that seem like they are in conflict, but when you get to the bigger picture outside of duality, it actually can hold both and as two truths.
Yeah. Well, and I think, I mean, I have we could have a huge, long discussion about the whole notion of duality. I think that duality exists only in our current physical world, and it
Right.
exists specifically so that we can have the experience of yes and no, left and right, up and down, black and white, man and woman. We have all those different kinds of experiences so that we have a way of comparing one to the other.
Right.
Because I think in the grand scheme of things, in our true spiritual nature, there is no duality. We're all one.
Right.
We are all that is. And I think you used that term, all that is, earlier on.
Yes.
That's my belief system. My ego mind has even become kind of okay with that belief system now, although it used to fight me in a big way for a long time. So
I agree that we're in this process of contrast. I do want this, I don't want that, that helps us move forward, helps us create this vehicle called life. And yet this evolution of consciousness, I stepping outside of that duality to understand maybe we can't understand it, but to be in the oneness of all creation. We are the earth recycling through our physical bodies, through water that goes through our bodies and back to the earth, and the minerals that we ingest that go back to the earth, and all of life and the air that we're all breathing. We are each of us unique bit of the earth recycling. So that level of oneness, and then we're the level of one human family. We're one. There's only one race of humans. We come in different colors and sizes and shapes, and we're one family that is dysfunctional. One dysfunctional family that is learning to get along with each other. And then we're part of that one creation of
right.
the one love that expresses uniquely in the individual and yet has this cohesiveness that creates all of life. And that, I believe, is our reason for being here, to find that in ourselves.
It's beautiful. And of course, it is precisely, you talked about recycling. And as you were saying the word recycling, I was hearing the word resilience in there. Precisely because that's what's going on. We are resilionating or something.
Oh, that's good. Let's coin a new phrase. And exactly, that's right. Because I'm thinking about the earth recycling. The decomposers are so important. If we didn't have decomposers, we would drown in all the leaves and all of our own waste and so forth.
Oh, I love that. And think about this. What are musicians, jazz musicians, but composers? Do you have composers and decomposers working together too?
Exactly. And then, so once we've got our structure of, most jazz musicians have had some training in structure. That's where they don't riff off nothing. They riff off the structure that they've learned, and maybe go back to some of those pieces that they've learned as hardwired in as standards. And
Right.
but then as things decompose, this is fun. I hadn't thought about it in this way. We can decompose things into different components, different parts, and then recreate new melodies, recreate new pauses, new tempos, new rhythms, which is what I find exciting about jazz.
Well, it's beautiful when you think about it, because when you think about creativity, just in general, what is creativity but the transformation of energy from one form into another? That's all it is. And when you think about it in deeper terms, when you're taking energy in one form and converting it to another, some people might look at that and say, well, it's destruction of the original form in order to construct the new form. So construction and destruction, composition and decomposition, all of these things that we're coming up with are beautiful things that one can't exist without the other.
Right. Exactly. And if we play with another metaphor of the butterfly, the caterpillar has to decompose into a mush of liminal of cells. What do we call
Yeah,
those
right.
cells?
I
Um,
don't know the mechanism, but yeah, you're talking about metamorphosis, right?
yes, yes. That it and it the old cells of the caterpillar try to kill off the butterfly cells until there are too many butterfly cells, and then they can
Oh,
overpower
interesting.
the old caterpillar cells, and the butterfly can emerge. So
That's amazing.
yes, isn't it amazing?
It
But
is.
that process happens in our lives in different ways. And can
Right.
we that old self is dying off to allow a new higher version of ourself to emerge. Isn't that
Right. And
exciting?
how anybody can imagine that all of this happened by just the random arrangement of primordial mush coming together, and all of a sudden butterflies exist. I just, man, I tell you, there's no question of, to me, of some form of conscious, intelligent design in the universe.
Divine
Maybe
and
there
yeah.
might be some evolutionary processes that take place for sure, but I think that the intelligent design cannot be ignored.
Well, intelligent design can use evolution over millions of years. Why not?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't see a conflict in that picture. Did
No,
you
I
know
don't.
that all the letters of the alphabet are on wings of butterflies?
No, I did not know that.
Isn't that cool? There is
I
I
didn't.
don't have it with me here, but there's a poster that
Oh,
has all of the alphabet on butterfly wings. I just find that delightful. Here we have a comment from Wesley. Another wonderful butterfly
butterfly
metaphor for
metaphor
human
for
growth.
human
Yes.
growth. Yeah,
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
Wesley. Thank you for saying that. That's a good point. There are many metaphors that really describe it. I think all of us go through a transformation at different points in our lives, and that's an aspect of resilience too. By the way, is transformation. So, yeah,
Willingness, again,
yep,
a choice point, willingness to rather than say, oh, I'm a caterpillar and I'm dying, to say, oh, look, I'm a caterpillar transforming and I'm going to be a butterfly.
that's right. Yeah, it's beautiful. So, at the beginning, I mentioned about your book. You have a copy there. Just put it up on the screen so we can see it. And just tell us a little bit about this book and where we can find it.
Mm-hmm. Seeking Serenity, How to Find Your Inner Calm and Joy. I was a stressed out professional who became a stressed out stay at home mom. And I I hit a choice point, and I tuned inward and found found my spiritual path. And then I started teaching people about ways to tune inward and find your inner calm and joy. So I wrote a book about it, and it's lots of fun. It's full of stories. It's full of thought provoking questions and easy to use exercises. And I am going to find the link here for the book.
This is available on Amazon.
It is
Great.
this one. There we go.
So next time we talk, I'll show you. I've got a copy of that book.
Ah, great. Okay, that's my book.
Excellent.
And then if people would like to connect with me, can I add these in here?
Oh yeah, of course, of course.
Okay. Here is my connection. And I have a class coming up.
So that's your website, right?
That's my website.
leahskurdal.com. All right.
That's correct. And I have a class coming up on the Wellness Universe platform called Trust Your Body.
Oh, nice.
This one, right? Body wisdom. Yes, trust your body wisdom. Learn to enjoy your relationship with yourself. And then here's the last one. And if people would like, I also wrote a chapter in the book that, one of the books that David and I are in. Oh, it didn't go. Control V, there we go. Okay, there we go. And so I'm happy to share this free chapter of the Wellness Universe Guide to Complete Self-Care, 25 Tools for Goddesses. My chapter is on the art of jazz living.
Yeah, it's a brilliant chapter, and I think people are really going to enjoy it. So we're getting close to the end of our time here, Leah. I just want to make sure my sense is you've got lots to say, and I love hearing what you have to say. But I'm wondering if you could take just a couple of minutes and summarize some words of wisdom for people who are here live and for anyone who's watching the recording.
Sure. The thing I want people to take away is that the problems that we have today were created from old ways of being, old structures, old thoughts, and we need some new insights. And we can find those new insights by, again, being agile, being resilient, tapping into that wisdom within and listening to what wants to emerge. So those jazz living skills are a tool to help us navigate change with agility and by tapping into our inner resilience. We've got what it takes. We can find the solutions. Let's listen.
Yeah, beautiful. We've got what it takes. We know the solutions. All we got to do is listen. Great advice and a great reminder. Well, thank you so much for being here today, Leah. It's just been a real pleasure. I've just enjoyed the exchange, and I'm grateful to have you as a friend. So thank you for that.
I know. Thanks so much, David. It seems like we could just have another hour-long conversation in a different direction.
So I'm sure we will in the future too.
In the future. I know. It's great. It's great.
Right. Well, I want to thank you all for watching today's program, and I want to remind you that you can catch the recordings of this and all other previous shows on my website at lifemasterytv.com. That's life-mastery-tv.com. You know, a jazz living approach to life guides people to tap into their inner creative resources, treat their bodies like temples, treat each other with dignity and respect, and treat the earth as sacred. By practicing jazz living, we set a trajectory to create heaven on earth and well-being for all. Those are not my words. Those are Leah's words. I just stole them. But I want to share those with you. And friends, I want to just remind you to remember to practice the Life Mastery mantra every day. It goes like this. I gratefully forgive the imperfect being I have been in the past. I gratefully accept the magnificent being I am right now. I gratefully welcome the evolved being I am becoming in each new moment. So until we meet again, I am David McLeod, your Life Mastery coach, wishing you love, light, and blessings on your continuing journey. See you next time right here on Life Mastery TV. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.